They're all letting us know that Duke did in fact win the ACC. Yes, Philip, I agree. The doomsday for Duke at this point looks like it has happened, and that's why we will bring up. Whoops, hold on. And that's why we will bring up. Here we go. The what looks like this is my projection of the playoffs. Now, please hear me out. This is not what I want to happen. This is not what I think should happen. This is what I'm predicting will happen. I am predicting that in the playoffs, with Duke winning, that you will not see the ACC in the college football playoffs. I believe you're going to see James Madison. Now, Bob Chesney has officially signed with UCLA, I do believe. I got my UCLA shirt on tonight, so that way I wouldn't be, biased one way or the other for Indiana or Ohio State. You're welcome. But however, I did pick Indiana, so I do want to put that out there. But James Madison is most likely going to be the 12, but there is some issue there because James Madison did lose their coach, Bob Chesney. Is Chesney sticking around to continue to coach? Is he at UCLA or is he at UCLA now? I don't know. That could impact things. We'll see. But Ole Miss didn't get moved when they lost their head coach. So, but at the same time, we have Kirk Herbstreit saying that Alabama shouldn't move for losing their game, but BYU should drop in the rankings. So, did you hear that too, Zach?
I'm to the point where we just throw things to the wall to justify our opinions.
Yeah.
Which is what it's always been. But
it's wild to see ESPN do it so blatantly.
Oh, and Chris Fowler says it's not bias. It's like, it absolutely is bias. Yeah. Like, we're biased. We own it. Like, we're biased Big Ten homers, but we also caveat that.
And how many times have I said on this show before, I am like more so biased toward the Big Ten that I'm actually comfortable with, because I know that nothing's going to actually change until people actually start seeing, okay, this might be an overreaction, but there's some truth here, right? It's the same thing that Kirk Cinetti did at Indiana. He came in and said Purdue sucks, Michigan sucks, and Ohio State sucks, right? Now, does Ohio State suck? No, they do not. But he did just beat Ohio State. Yep. He did just beat Ohio State. He went out, he beat all three of those teams. It was an over-exaggeration, at least for one team on there. Michigan doesn't suck. But at least for one team on there, it was an over-exaggeration. But he still got his point across that we are going to go out and beat these teams. You wait. Yep. And in 2 years, he made it happen. He won the Big Ten. That's why I have Indiana at number 1. I have Georgia at number 2. I just think, don't get me wrong, I think Ohio State should be number 2. Based off that performance, but you're going to get people picking them apart. Right. Alabama, they blew out Alabama, yada, yada, yada. And then Ohio State number 3. They're not dropping to 4. They're not going to put Ohio State and Indiana on the same side of the bracket. And then Texas Tech number 4. What do you think about the top 4 in the buys?
Well, a couple things. I think if Ohio State's 3 and their next game is between Tulane and Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss might be the sucker out of all the SEC teams. And I like Ohio State's draw more than anybody else out of those buys. Because you have Indiana playing Notre Dame or Oklahoma. If they get Oklahoma, I think Indiana wins fairly easily. But if they get Notre Dame, I think that's a tough draw for Indiana.
I would still pick Notre Dame, but I agree it would be a more difficult matchup than Oklahoma.
Yeah. Texas Tech, have fun playing Oregon. That's all I got to say.
Oregon's going to destroy them. They do not have the speed they need to beat in Oregon.
That BYU Texas Tech game was, I was like, I'm pretty sure BYU makes Iowa look fast.
The announcers in that game said Texas Tech might have the best defensive line in the country.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Listen, Texas Tech has a very good defensive line. They've got some good transfers in. But we can't act like Indiana, because they don't have a whole bunch of 4 stars and 5 stars, isn't something great, and then turn around and say, well, Texas Tech got all their, defensive linemen from UCF and Houston, and they're the best defensive line. They're not. They're not. Indiana has the best defensive line in the country. We just saw why.
Yeah.
So.
I think I would probably, if I were ranking it, I'd probably have Indiana 1, Ohio State 2. But I think Georgia, to their credit, They beat a, at the time ranked Georgia Tech team, held them to 9 points, held Alabama to 7. I know we can pick them apart because we love to, but they've really, I feel like, turned a corner over the past few weeks, and
Hmm.
I don't have a problem with them being number 2.
Hmm. Now, A. Wilhelm here, appreciate you being here, has it almost exactly the way I would have it. Now, personally, I would have Indiana 1, Ohio State 2. However, I do think that Wilhelm here is trying to project it. So I get that. But same top four as me, and then mine after that. I guess I need to state this before we read Wilhelm's here. Number 5, Oregon. Number 6, Ole Miss. 7, Texas A&M. 8, Notre Dame. 9, Oklahoma. 10, I still have Alabama in there because I do not think they will drop them out. I just don't think it'll happen. And then
No.
number 11, Tulane. Number 12, James Madison. Wilhelm here has it number 9, Miami, and then number 10, Notre Dame. I think that is how it should happen, but I don't think that's how it will happen. Um, Zach, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, again, if I were on the committee, well, actually, so I was again watching with my friends, and one of my coworkers, I work with him in ministry. He was like, you're a media member, right? I'm like, yes. He's like, do you think you'll ever get on the committee? I'm like, no. But if I did, I would work to undermine it and destroy it from the inside because they're awful. I think we should try to do that now that our evil plan is on air. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to drop Alabama. If I were there, I would, because I think the justification that, well, maybe like then we're not going to play the conference championship game. I'm so sick of these SEC crybabies threatening to stop playing games because they're
Mm-hmm.
not getting what they want. Alabama was awful today. They were terrible, and they've been terrible for a month. And they were rewarded because they beat a 5-7 Auburn team by 7 points. Who cares? And then they didn't show up today. You know what? They should be punished. And you know who shouldn't be punished is Miami, right? Because Miami actually beat a team that we're projecting into the field, and they have the same record as them. And so I think the easy thing to do, Miami 9, Notre Dame 10. But you know who's not going to allow that? ESPN. And they're going to cite, well, Alabama had a 4-game stretch of all these wins against ranked teams, which half of them aren't ranked anymore.
They'll probably say that oh, Alabama got up 17 to nothing on Auburn. That was really impressive. It was really impressive when Alabama scored a touchdown and made it 21 to 7 against Georgia, so we kept them in there.
They were non-competitive in this game.
They were.
And
They
then
were.
Ty Simpson has the audacity to say, we are the best offense in the country.
He just got the antidote of confidence from PJ Fleck. He got the
Yeah.
antidote of confidence.
Yeah, and he's had the success of the antidote of confidence this year with Minnesota too. Um,
Ouch.
they went
Taking
7 and
shots in
5.
the Big Ten now. Come on.
Well, I'm just
What have you turned into, Zach?
I'm correlating. I'm like,
I'm just messing with you.
yeah. Anyway,
So I will say one thing that people have not brought up about this Bama thing, because Michael is saying John Bama is out. And Michael, I think they should be too. I just don't think it will happen. They should be, not just because they lost. I'm not even saying they should be out because they lost. I do think that if you lose in championship weekend, that it is wrong for you to get completely out. Okay? I do think that's wrong because not everybody else is playing. But the thing that's not being talked about here is, Zach, who was Alabama's best win?
Vandy.
Georgia.
Oh, Georgia. Duh, Georgia.
If your best win beats you again, is it still your best win anymore? In my mind, it should subtract itself out, right?
Yeah.
You don't get credit for the Georgia win anymore because you just lost to Georgia. Sure, it was an extra credit game. I get it. Miami wasn't playing this weekend, but you can't tell me that wasn't just a fluke game. And that's what we've seen from Alabama this entire time that Kalen DeBoer has been there. It's been fluke after fluke after fluke. Flukes in the losses, and now we're discovering it's flukes in the wins as well because this Alabama team is not nearly as good as people say. I know I have them number 10 on my thing. I do not think they should be number 10. in the playoffs. It should be Notre Dame at number 10 and Miami at number 9. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't think it'll happen. And honestly, the bright side of it is that Indiana might get to face Notre Dame, and that would be a rematch of the playoffs last year. It would just be one more way that Indiana could redeem themselves after last year. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Zach.
Well, I think the thing that's frustrating, you can find a way to make things that the committee has cared about to make arguments for Alabama, but it goes both ways, right? So what have they said about Notre Dame over Miami? Well, Notre Dame looks better. Okay. Notre Dame looks better. And so that nullifies their head to head. Guess what? Alabama has looked like garbage.
They've looked awful to end the season. Yes.
Yeah, they've looked terrible. And so if you're going to use that to prop up one team, then you need to use it to penalize other teams. Alabama has looked terrible. Another argument that they'll say is we don't want to punish teams that lose on championship weekend. Okay, well then BYU should be in, right? That's how
Yep.
this works.
Yep.
But BYU was 11. They were fighting for their championship lives. Well, then why is Alabama not? Like they were on the cut line just a week ago. But for some reason, because Alabama played 5-7 Auburn and was up 17-0 at half, they jumped Notre Dame. Why? Like it's just insanity. But you can like all the metrics that they will use to justify Alabama's existence. You can cut both ways. And I think that's the frustrating thing about this. Even like the top 25 wins, it's like, okay, now look at their schedule and tell me how many top 25 wins they have. They have Georgia, good for them. They have Vandy, good for them. Missouri's not ranked anymore in the CFP.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee's not ranked in the CFP anymore.
No, they're not.
And they've lost to Oklahoma. And by the way, they have that albatross of a loss to another 5-7 team known as Florida State, aka a team that did not win the ACC.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I totally agree. We got a gift given by Racer TTT. Appreciate you being here. Racer TTT gifted 1 membership of the Big Ten Huddle with John Rhodes as membership. I had somebody tell me one time I should put my name in the thing there, so I don't think anybody noticed when I changed that, but I did. So I was like, I guess I should. YouTube metric stuff there.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
Evil Badger. Or go ahead.
I was just saying, you've been JR for so long. We just, shifting to John.
Yeah, there we go. Which people are calling me John in the chat now, which it does feel more realistic, more natural. But you're not going to call me John. I've told you multiple times to call me John.
No, I'll get there. 2035, we'll get there.
If we're still doing this podcast by 2035, I'm going to need the Big Ten to be noticed as the best conference because my blood pressure is going to be far too high if I keep screaming about the SEC until then. Anyway, Evil Badger, Ryan Willie says, totally agree with Zach about the SEC. Sankey wants all the at-large bids to SEC teams. Yeah, he did say today he wanted 7 SEC teams in there.
Well, you know what?
How insane is that?
I want to like spend a night in Cinderella's royal castle, like at Disney World, but that's never going to happen either. So like zip it.
Yeah. Zip it.
I love Disney. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Evil Badger, for the $5. In fact, I will tell everybody. I don't think I've told anybody this. This entire podcast, the past few months, has been funding my family's trip to Disney. So as much as you guys are helping us and talking about like how great the pod is, I appreciate you guys and I appreciate your super chats because me and my family would not be able to go to Disney.
Wait, when are you going to Disney?
March.
So, okay, we need to talk offline.
We're still saving up for it. But anyway, I have a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they are just absolutely ecstatic to go. Anyway, I don't need to disclose everything about my family's life on here. Trojan Fight says, so we're getting 2 G5 teams in. Yeah, so I said this a little bit, but I didn't get your thoughts on it, Zach. The only way I could see James Madison not making it is if they punish them for the Bob Chesney thing. Now, I will say Iowa was above James Madison at 8-4 in the college football playoff rankings. So it's not completely insane to think that Duke could jump in if you already have an 8-4 team in there. You have Duke beat Virginia. Could they jump in? Would they jump over James Madison? I mean, we don't know where they have people at for like
Mhm.
26, 27, 28, I would guess they would say, actually, we had Duke right outside of the top 25, right behind, which seems asinine to me. But I suppose that could happen. I suppose the demotion because of Bob Chesney going to UCLA could happen. I don't know. What do you think will happen, Zach?
I man, I think it's hard because so Duke beat Virginia, but Virginia went on the road and beat them by 17 like 3 weeks ago. So I mean, they avenged the loss there, but I mean their schedule, they got beat 45-19 by Illinois, who is an 8-4 team in the Big Ten. I could see, here's what I think. So this is why, the one reason why I think Miami might get in. I don't think they're putting Duke in. Like
I
I
don't think
really
they are
don't think
either.
I don't
I
think
don't
they're,
think they are either.
but I don't think they are going to. I think they're going to want to throw a bone to the ACC. So I do think there is a real possibility that it is Miami and not Notre Dame.
But they haven't thrown the bone to the ACC before. They left Florida State out when they were undefeated.
Yeah, I I'm
I
not
think the
saying it's
hardest.
definitely going to happen.
No,
I'm just saying, like, I just wonder if, because Duke's not getting in. Like,
yeah,
I just don't. The schedule's not good enough.
the wins aren't good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and even beating Virginia is like Virginia. If we were in the old system, Virginia would have been. They would have been the four seed in last year's version, but it wasn't by much, right? Like Tulane's 20, Virginia 17. Like that's not that big of a win.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. We'll see what happens. I do think your point about they don't want to leave the ACC out is interesting, but they did it to Florida State. But the thing I have to remind myself every time when we talk about this stuff and we talk about the past is that the committee does not care what they've done in the past. It's a similar issue that you have with the AP poll, right? Is that they don't care what the parameters are, what they're supposed to do, what they've been told to do. All they care about is what do we think right now. And the committee has shown that they are not consistent throughout the years. So that's another issue that teams have. And also, if you do end up putting Notre Dame in and not Miami, it's going to continue to show teams it does not matter who you beat. Head to heads do not matter. All that matters
Mhm.
are style points and brand. And I think that is going to be something that kills that kills parity in this sport if we try to acknowledge, oh, it's all about brand and how many style points you have.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, Indiana had a ton of style points last year. They didn't have as many style points at times this year. Almost lost to Iowa, almost lost to Indiana, or almost lost to Penn State. Those are teams that had multiple losses you should not have almost lost to. But Indiana showed it doesn't matter about style points. They still went out and win this game against Ohio State, and they're the number one team in the country, as they should be. So,
Mhm.
a few other comments I want to bring up, and then we can get final thoughts on this. Steven says, if you guys are Buckeye fans, thank you for the class and joy you are displaying. And Andrew says, I didn't even know JR was a Buckeye fan. That's amazing. Total class act. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate it.
Mhm.
We try our best to be unbiased on here. We acknowledge everybody has bias. Like it's always going to come out at some point, but we try our best to be as unbiased as we possibly can. So, but you guys coming in and saying best CFP podcast in the country, love this show. That lets us know that we think we're probably doing something right. So thank
Yeah,
you for
we
being
appreciate
here.
you guys.
Yeah, we
We really
appreciate you.
appreciate you.
So,
Yep.
um, let's see. Any final thoughts? I'm going to search through the comments really fast to make sure we got as much as we possibly could. But any final thoughts on the playoff bracket here, Zach?
I think this is the most likely scenario what you've put out. I do like I do think there is a chance that Miami is in over Notre Dame. I think that would make, and I have a lot of friends that are Notre Dame fans, and so part of me is like I actually like I would want to see Notre Dame in this tournament because I think they're really good. But I just, again, if you're going to have a Miami Notre Dame game scheduled and then all of a sudden it's like, by the way, that game that doesn't count. Like that to me, more than Texas whining about losing to Ohio State, That to me would be more of the death knell of non-conference scheduling. That
Mm-hmm.
so I just think that that has to stick in the craw of the committee a little bit. I and I just I really hope that there is discussion that Bama was not good enough. And like if we're gonna treat BYU as well, they weren't good enough, like they were non-competitive today. And they've been more than mid the past few weeks. And I think they should be punished for it. And again, I have family that love Alabama. I actually don't have a vendetta against Alabama. I like them. I like Kalen DeBoer.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going to judge this based on how we judge other teams, then guess what? Like what you've been saying about everybody else, Bama has all those knocks against it. But I'm not into I don't think enough. I am not high on the committee making the right decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm not either, and I think that's why we have to get rid of the committee as soon as we possibly can. And that kind of
Yep.
goes into Wilhelm here. The question a little bit. What do you guys think about a 16 team playoff, all Power Four champion game team, all Power Four championship game teams get in with top G5 conference champ and 7 wild cards. So I have always been auto bids for conferences. I don't like how many at larges there are. I think you need
No.
a couple at larges because you do need some of those nuanced situations, but I don't think you should have so many wild cards out there. And I think honestly, I'm really rooting for Alabama to not be in because if that happens, I do think we are going to be closer to making that happen because the SEC, I mean Stuart Mandel said it on Twitter, the SEC will get rid of the conference championship game as quick as they possibly can if Alabama doesn't make it in there. But they're not going to just get rid of it. They're going to find something to put there instead that makes them money. You know what would make them money? Play-in
Playing
games
games.
for the college football playoff. So you could technically keep it at like 12 teams or something like that, but just have play-in games. You could technically do 16 teams and just have play-in games, I think. I think there's a way to do that there. But I am all for a 16. 24 is so much. I still can't completely get on board with it, but whatever we can do to try and have a play-in game weekend instead of a conference championship weekend is what I'm in favor of because I didn't like watching games today and knowing these really didn't matter. The Ohio State Indiana one did matter because of off the field, kind of like non-playoff related stuff, like how much it meant for Indiana, stopping the winning streak of Ohio State, all kinds of stuff like that. So that did matter, but you don't get that in every conference championship game. More often than not in the SEC, you're going to get Alabama or Georgia or both of them playing each other, and then you're going to get two Big 12 teams that like the undermatched one can make the playoffs if they win, but the big one is Texas Tech is most likely going to win the game, just like Texas Oklahoma State last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or 2 years ago. Texas was obviously going to win that game. Oklahoma State never stood a chance. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah. Any thoughts on that before we move on, Zach?
Yeah, I think I think I've said this before on this show. Anything that gets rid of subjectivity I'm in favor of. It they do it in high school ball, right?
Yeah.
They have a formula where they rank schedules by strength of schedule, and it's all like it's sterile. It's like calculated and it's set before the season. The thing that's frustrating is that the way our sport is right now, everything's subjective. And once things are decided, people are then up in arms about the decisions that they made like in place this season. Case in point, group of 5 teams being in, people are up in arms. It's like group of 5 teams shouldn't be in unless ... Hey, guys, you said this was what you wanted. Like, why are you surprised? You knew that this was like this is where this was going.
Well, and if group of 5 teams are ever going to get on the Power Four level, the only way that happens is with access. And it's why you see a lot of SEC people, and don't fall into this trap, guys. Like you have to realize how much of the national media is a trap. out there. Do not fall into the trap of, the group of five, their own playoff system. I get it. It sounds really good. But the whole reason that happens is so that the group of five stays in their own little bubble, stays in their own little place. The more access you give, the more opportunity you give, the better teams are going to get because people actually see a glimmer of hope now, right? It's why the group of five got better after Boise State beat Oklahoma in the bowl game. Well, guess what? When there weren't any more upsets for a while, tapered off. It went down. Last year, you saw Boise State get to the 3 seed in the playoffs. Sure, it was a pretty undeserving 3 seed, but they got there as a 3 seed in the playoffs. You saw more opportunity, you saw more access for that to happen, and it makes it so that more teams are going to be able to bring in talent. They're going to be able to pay for their coaches, and they're going to be able to have a better product on the field, which at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want a better product on the field. We don't want Power Four teams to just kill G5 teams every time they play it. At least I don't. I don't know if that's what anybody else wants,
Mm.
but that's what I don't want. So, last thing I'll ask you here, Zach, because Hummus Hero brought it up. And by the way, props to you for being here, Hummus Hero, an Ohio State fan,
Mhm.
going outside of the Ohio State channels right now. Props to you for doing that, and we appreciate you being here too. Hummus Hero said, "I think Oregon potentially could end up like last year's Ohio State, flying under the radar and loaded with talent. I think as long as they get some of those wide receivers back and they get injury free, which I think that it was good for them. They didn't play in the Big Ten championship game, so they can focus on getting more injury free. I think Hummus Hero is right. If I'm going to pick a dark horse in this scenario to win like a non-top four team to win the playoffs, I think Oregon would probably be my pick."
Yeah, I think Oregon has a fairly favorable path up until the semifinals where they'd have a rematch, presumably with Indiana.
Yeah, yeah, and they've seen each other before. I think that's the
Yeah.
best way to be able to beat a team is to see them again, right? You know what kind of
Yep.
stuff Indiana runs. You know how that defensive line beat you last game, and that offensive line for Oregon looks like they've been improved since that game. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.